We had big news today. Sidney Powell pleads guilty over efforts to overturn Trump's loss in Georgia and agrees to cooperate. Now, I'm seeing a lot of Trump supporters are like, wow, she got a great deal. All the felonies dropped, just a handful of misdemeanors now. Talk about an amazing plea. And I'm like, no, they got what they wanted. They wanted the headline, Sidney Powell pleads guilty. And they got it. Because all anyone thinks, they don't think about the minutia of the court case. They're not thinking about the individual charges. They don't even know what she was charged with. All they know is she's an insurrectionist and she just admitted it. Now she's going to testify likely against Donald Trump. So I'm curious what you guys think as to where this ends up going. But I certainly do think they will begin to file their 14th Amendment removal, takedowns of Trump or whatever, now that this is in.
Yeah, that's pretty likely.
I mean, I think it's sad to see this play out. I think that's my overwhelming reaction to this. I hate to make any accusations before we actually hear her testimony, right? Like, we don't know what's going to happen, and I can't imagine being in the position. The thing is,
she apologized already to the state.
Yeah, which is
she's
terrible.
She's getting 6 years of probation, I think.
That's it?
Yeah, 6 years.
It's very unlikely she's not testifying.
So she is testifying for sure.
And she will testify against the other defendants.
The thing that I am so curious about, and it's not that I don't want to make excuses for anything like that, but when the federal government decides to pursue you, it is so costly.
This is Georgia.
But it's backed by the entire state, right? Like any state litigation, any long-term litigation, and having to turn over documents and having to turn over emails. I mean, I don't think it's right. I would have preferred to see her not take a plea, but
I think this proves she's a grifter. I think this proves she is a grifter because, I was talking about it earlier. I could not imagine genuinely believing a thing, right? Imagine if they came to you and said, do you believe in the vision of the founding fathers? Yes. Okay. We're going to destroy your life unless you stand before the court and the people and tell them you don't believe these things. Most people are going to be like, no. Like, what are you like? A lot of people would say yes. They'll be like, I'll do anything you say, please. Mm-hmm. But those are people who never actually cared in the first place. Anyone who stands up on stage with the microphone and says, I believe in what the founding fathers believed in, blah, 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 in the Constitution. And then immediately is like, I'll say anything you want to say. Grifter.
Well, yep. I will say this, though. One thing, this is the AP, and we are relying on this entire conversation from a headline from the media, the very people that we don't trust. Do we trust that they're giving us the whole story, number one? And now, look, I'm not defending anything that's going on. I want to give a different perspective. I go on Twitter Spaces all the time. I listen to the J6. I listen to the people that are being attacked by a weaponized government. And I will say there was one J6 person in particular. I'm not going to name that person's name, but the government leaked information purposefully to make it seem like that J6 defendant was talking to the government so that all of us, the people that were in his family, would turn on him.
Yes, but there is a video from the courtroom.
Huh?
There's video from the courtroom where she's saying, yes, yes, yes.
Attacking Donald Trump?
No. They say, "Will you're pleading guilty?" Yes, and your sentence will be, you've agreed to something like you've agreed to allow us access to certain information and documents. Yes.
Oh, sure.
And you will testify.
Well, this person also gave some information, but the fact of the matter is, could it be that this is a duality? They want to use her not only to attack Donald Trump, but they want to turn every friend of her against her.
Or
is that a possibility?
But she had to agree to it.
Yeah.
True. But I mean, when you're forced with 14 felonies, whatever, I hate to say it, how many people would, for the right reason, go through 14 felonies?
It really depends. And it depends on your level of conviction. So I'll
just giving a different perspective, not defending.
Are you Christian?
Yes.
Ashley, you're Christian?
I'm Jewish.
You're Jewish. Yeah. Okay. And you're obviously Christian, right? Yeah. Serge, are you Christian?
Yeah, Protestant.
If you were brought before a court and they said, we are going to use the full weight of the state government, we will lock you up for decades unless you renounce Jesus Christ in a courtroom, would you do it?
I want to hope that I would do the right thing.
You have to denounce his name, apologize for ever having believed in him, and tell everyone how you no longer believe it and you never believed it, in fact. Would you do it?
I don't think I could do it.
So my point is, obviously, your faith in Christ is leaps and bounds above politics.
Correct.
But I'm just using that as the benchmark of where does someone stand when they're willing to say, I don't actually believe a thing if it benefits them in some other way. And again, I'm not trying to compare them directly. I'm trying to actually contrast them and say, you can understand most people who believe in, who are religious, and actually in your instance, like reject God, and denounce your faith. Most people would not do that. And then you go way down into the political realm, which is very far from faith. But it's a question of how much conviction a person has in what they're saying. I think anybody who is willing to get up on stage for months and proclaim something, asserting its truth, and then when it comes to the court, the opportunity to get this evidence on the record in front of a jury, in front of people on TV, says, I plead guilty. Just, that shows that they were grifting the whole time.
Well, that compelled speech, but again, the punishments against her are so severe. The compelled speech is the most important aspect to them, in my opinion. And we see this throughout everything. It characterizes everything from the left, including big tech. Even when Twitter was banning people or suspending people from tweets, the most important part of that was they made you admit you did something wrong. Mm-hmm. They made you admit that this tweet was transphobic, this tweet was this. That compelled speech aspect is very, very important to them. So they're going to do whatever they need to do to get it from.
And I think you're right. I mean, the biggest thing is they have, Trump affiliate pleads guilty. That's second to Trump's mugshot itself. These are these big visual targets they're trying to hit.
And this is what I think conservatives don't get. Conservatives are playing a logic game, and Democrats and liberals are playing an emotions game.
For sure.
And so I do think instantly every conservative or anti-woke person was like, we know this. No. People are saying it doesn't matter because the paperwork didn't say this and Sidney didn't say that. And I'm like, no, you don't understand how this works. Give it 2 or 3 weeks. The Wikipedia page for this will say Donald Trump, Sidney Powell, the media will manufacture the narrative now that they've been given the seed. The first headline will say Sidney Powell pleads guilty over efforts to overturn Trump's loss in Georgia and agrees to cooperate. That's the headline number 1. Headline number 2 will come from a liberal publication that will say something like Sidney Powell admits Donald Trump was attempting to overturn election, pleads guilty. Then a few weeks later, you'll get Trump, new statements from Sidney Powell suggest Trump instructed her to attempt to overthrow the government. And then just all will be based off each other and exaggerations of the last. Give it 1 year and the story on Wikipedia will be in 2020, Donald Trump instructed Sidney Powell to sneak into an office and destroy a bunch. It'll just make it up. It'll be the most absurd thing ever. And so what they needed was the seed. And the seed was her saying, guilty. I'm guilty. Now they have it.
I mean, and that's probably why they would push so hard. I'm not saying she's doing anything right. I think you're right. There is a level of you want everyone to stand by their convictions. And you're seeing this from other, people who are associated with Trump to tremendous cost to themselves, both financially and personally. I mean, one of the challenges with any kind of intense investigation is the fact that they just consume your life, right? If they ask you to turn over every email that you ever sent from whatever email address for the past 4 years, I mean, that's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of different types of documents you have to go through. It's not that she should have taken the plea, but it's not to say that this is the government fighting fair.
She's still in prison. She's still going to be in prison, metaphorically speaking. This is worse than going to jail, in my opinion.
And there's no bouncing
having
back.
to live this way, for her having to sell out and testify and cooperate with these horrible people. This is worse than jail.
But I think
she's in prison.
I think it's going to have a massive impact on the other defendants. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's not even if she will testify. Imagine you're awaiting your trial and they come to you and they say, she's agreed to testify against you. We're not going to give you a deal. What happens next is they go to the next guy, like Chase Brewer or whatever, and they're going to say, she got 6 years probation. We're going to give you 1 year in jail. That's the best offer you'll get. And they'll be like, but what? Why? That's crazier than what she got. And they'll be like, yeah, because she's testifying against you.
That's a worse prison to live in, to know that you sold out those people.
Right.
And everyone's still going to hate you because they're still going to make these headlines about you.
Meanwhile, a celebrity makeup producer,
Huda Beauty.
Whatever her name is,
Huda, I can't remember.
Huda something.
Oh. No, Huda, I can't remember her last name, but she's the Iranian. Her line is Huda Beauty.
She has posted videos saying she would rather have her business destroyed than sell to Israelis. I'm paraphrasing. She said she doesn't want their blood money. The conviction on the left is palpable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She goes on her platform to all of her followers, however many millions, and crying, saying she sides with Palestine. And then people are like, hey, Israelis like your products too. And she goes, I don't want your blood money.
But you're
Think
right.
about the convictions.
You're right. They do have more conviction, and
Yeah.
they have more despite them being anti-capitalist. They're better capitalists than us because they vote with their dollars better than we do. They have that conviction.
But it could also just be components of the deep state that I actually know. My point is when it comes to the woke left in general, the machine supports you. It's easier to side with the machine. In this instance, the machine was against Sidney Powell. She sides with the machine. However, in the instance of Hamas, the machine is not in favor of what the left is supporting, and they're still supporting it anyway, which proves the point. Many of these people have convictions that they will not let go, and they will stand before the world and say, "Don't buy my product. I will sacrifice everything for what I believe in." And on the right, you get grifters.
But I think this
Not all of them, but you know.
This is tantamount to President Trump, though. We're seeing indictment after indictment. We're seeing the weaponization. And look, I want to make it clear about my neutrality, but the fact of the matter is, look at what's working on people like this article right here. Clearly, they found the blueprint that if they charge you with X, Y, and Z, they can get you to plead guilty, to lower whatever charges they did against you, and then they're going to use that same blueprint against everybody else.
Yeah.
What if they're doing these indictments to try to get President Trump to drop out? And if he did, they would have the blueprint for the future of what to do to every other presidential opponent from here on out.
It's not just presidential opponents, though. This is a total weaponized DOJ. And the problem with this lawfare is they're showing us that they can weaponize any law against any of us. Mm-hmm. Most of us, they could weaponize a law against us if they wanted to.
I mean, the New York Attorney General is sort of famous for this. Letitia James, she goes after Project Veritas, she goes after all kinds of people. And part of it, again, like I'm saying, is the lead up to the case. Before you even get into court, all of the demands that are placed on you to turn over documents or to be compliant or whatever else, it's crazy. And I think that's the stuff that we don't see because we only see it when it gets to the headlines. And that's not completely unreasonable. This stuff is very hard to follow. It's happening behind closed doors for the most part. But I think this idea, I think your neutrality is interesting and great because if it could happen for Trump, who is such a public figure, think about who it's happening for, who we don't know about, or smaller organizations or smaller candidates. I mean, anyone could then be brought up under the same charges. That's how precedent works.
That's absolutely right. And they didn't care. All those years he was operating in New York, they didn't care. Now all of a sudden they care. But
Lies.
That's how lawfare works.
They're completely lying about everything about Trump. These court cases, the lawsuits, it's all nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's for strategic purpose. It's a weaponized DOJ. I mean, that's what you're talking about. And I just think ultimately because all legal court cases, there's so much back and forth, right? They're in court, they're out of court, they change this charge, they resubmit whatever. It is hard to keep the focus of the American people. And that's why the flashy headline is the biggest weapon right now.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.